The Bridgeness Tablet was found in 1868 when a local resident was extending his kale yard. And he found the stone upside down, laid a slabbing, got quite surprised when he turned it over and found a nice piece of Roman sculpture on the top of it. The land was owned by Henry Cadell of the Grange, and within a year he donated the stone to the National Museum through in Edinburgh, which is where it's still on display. At the time that it was found, it was conventional to make a drawing and to produce a lithograph of the item, and it was recognised as quite an important object, so that's immediately happened. However, they just come up with a brand new technique within the last 20 or so years, which was called photography. So the Bridgeness Tablet was one of the earliest of the Roman stones on the Antonine Wall to be extensively photographed. And in recent years we've gone to the latest version of this technology, which is laser scanning. So one of the images behind me is of the scan of the original object that was made in the National Museum, and it provides a huge amount of detail. The Bridgeness Tablet is the largest of a series of distance tablets which punctuate the Antonine Wall. They commemorate the name of the emperor who commissioned the wall, which was Antoninus Pius, and each one of the stones provides the name of a legion who made a certain length of the wall, which at that time was known as the vallum. The vallum consisted of the rampart and the ditch. The ditch was something in the region of 9 metres wide and 4 metres deep on average, and the rampart was 4.3 metres wide at the base and about 3 metres tall. The Bridgeness Tablet itself is 2.8 metres long, so it's quite large, and it commemorates the construction of 4,652 paces, military paces, of the vallum, which would take you all the way from Bridgeness through to the River Avon, so it's a good geographical landmark. The central panel with the inscription is bordered on either side by a pelter, which has got griffin heads on the two ends. And on the left-hand side, there's a scene showing a Cavalry Man. This is quite a common depiction in the Roman Empire, derived from the Greeks. It's a wonderful piece of propaganda. Basically, it's saying, don't meddle with us, resistance is futile. And it shows this fantastic Cavalry Man with his red cloak billowing out behind him, and his red plume on the crest of his head, bravely riding down the local barbarians. So this is the first depiction we actually have of the people of the Bownes area. And it shows 4 people under the horse's hooves. But you have to learn how to read these. It's almost like a cartoon strip. Imagine it, rather than being 4 people, as being one person in different stages of subjugation. So initially you've got the barbarian still holding his shield and able to defend himself. And in the second figure, you can see he's got a javelin point in his back and he's thrown his weapons away. By the time you come to his third reenactment, he's a captive, he's dejected. And then finally, at the end point, he's decapitated. And the original piece of sculpture was painted, and there are traces of red paint surviving on the severed neck. So very, very bright and gory. On the right-hand side, you've got a scene depicting an altar with 4 toga-dressed men standing behind it. One of them is holding a vessel, and he's pouring a libation onto the focus of the altar. Behind him, there's a little flag, and that commemorates a vexillation of the Second Legion. And that tells us that this man is the legate. He's the man in charge of that legion, making the offering. And he's about to sacrifice 3 animals in a ceremony known as the Suva Italia. The 3 animals are a pig, a sheep and a bull. And this was done at the beginning or the very end of a major undertaking. So either the invasion of Scotland, or in this particular case we think the construction of the Antonine Wall. And we know from archaeological evidence that this is more likely to be the final act of the building of the Antonine Wall here. In front of the three animals, you've got a herder keeping the animals placid during the murder. And behind them, you've got someone playing pipes. So some nice religious sacrificial music through there in the background. And what this is a piece of Roman propaganda. What it's doing is projecting Roman culture and values onto the world. That's why even today, European culture is very much anchored into the Roman period. Having said that, this is provincial art. This is not high classical art. So the reason we've chosen it as a third of the 10.5 objects is because of that cultural background. And of course, in the year 2008, the Antonine Wall and objects like the Bridgeness Tablet were incorporated into the World Heritage Site of the frontiers of the Roman Empire.